I would like to call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order. If you could all please rise for pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for being here this evening. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and is available to view on YouTube. So moving into our regular business of the meeting, we'll start with a meeting minute review. So I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 21st, 2026 as written.
So
Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. Moving on, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 4th, 2026 as written.
So moved.
Motion by Sean. Second by Heather. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. And then finally, finishing up our regular business, I would also entertain a motion to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Sean. Second by Heather. Any questions or comments on those bills and payroll? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. Moving on, our student representative is not here this evening. Is there anyone who would like to give public input this evening? Okay. Go ahead and, as per usual, say your name and your town. And we'll start with the 3 minutes and then see if you need more.
Okay, great, thanks. John Valentine, Templeton, Mass. Thank you for having me tonight. So you're all very well-intended people, every single one of you. And we appreciate that. And it's a hard, daunting work. But I'm here to say that there's a disconnect in terms of, well, intent and affordability. There's simply no money in the town. There's zero money left. The town is facing dire consequences. So who knows what will happen with Phillipston on the 30th of this month in terms of whether they pass the override or not. But we need to start focusing on the good intent versus reality of what the town has for money. As I found out early in the process, that this town has immense powers, this board here, this school committee, when they pass the budget and it's passed by the town meetings, it's law, and it is what it is. So we want good stuff for our kids, but there's no money. There's an affordability issue there, so we have to scale it back. If you can't afford to have it, you can't have it. And this board needs to realize that, and this superintendent needs to realize that. But also, it perplexes me that Phillipston is missing 2 members. I see it on the agenda, so I'll defer to that. But I would like those somehow filled either through special elections or awareness or however you have proposed to get that done. But this is an incomplete committee, school committee. We're facing such important things, and we should look for what's happening for the rest of 2027 budget, but look ahead for 2028. Because if we need to make difficult decisions this past year, which apparently there were, there's going to be even more on fiscal year 28. The townspeople, this is a low and moderate income people. Only 1,700 people in Phillipston, 8,300 people in Templeton. Low and moderate income, small rural community. We have to live within our means based on what we have. Thank you.
Yes, Jeff Bennett, Templeton, Mass. And just in case anybody has trouble discerning, I'm speaking as a private resident. I was looking on the town website because it's all about school budget right now and town budgets. And under the policy page, fiscal management, budget adoption procedures, which was adopted in April 2014, revised in February 2022, last reviewed April 2014. But it highlights a section of Mass General Law, Chapter 7116B, and it talks about the budget is not approved at least 2/3 of the member municipalities. This is a two-member district. Mass General Law, Chapter 7116B, it does reference two-member districts in their budget process. I would find it more appropriate for that information to be posted on the district website rather than something that has no relevance to the two-member town district. I've also looked at the budget presentation from back in March for fiscal 27, and it has in here, it talks about preschool and funding and one teacher. Whether that's refers to pre-K or not, I don't know. But according to the RAC documents that are on your website, it speaks that the last agreement that checked all the boxes, that went to all the places it was supposed to go, is the 1977 agreement. That funds K through 12. So I don't know if we're funding or billing pounds for pre-K when the last agreement that Desi and Mars said we're technically following is the 77, which is K through 12. And lastly, the RAC process put forth a new regional agreement with an amendment, and the procedures say that it's supposed to go to both towns, both member towns. The selectmen have to put it in front of their annual or a special town meeting, depending on the schedule. Templeton did it. Phillipston selectmen have so far refused to put that in front of town meeting. So I am wondering why the Phillipston members of this committee are not going to the Phillipston selectmen and asking them, telling them they're supposed to do this, put this in front of the voters so they can vote yes or no. Doesn't matter. They get their vote. And if that's not going to work, why shouldn't the members of this committee from Phillipston, who are supposed to look out for the district and their parents, tell the parents they have the option of doing a citizen's petition to force the calling of a town meeting and to put the agreement in front of the voters so they have their say. And that would be following the regional agreement. Because if they haven't done that, do we have an agreement? Can we be billed for anything? You know, before that goes to Desi and the stuff really hits the fan. Yeah. Thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Oops. Yeah, all right. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much to our members from the public who spoke this evening. NDEA is off wrapping up the end of the year, I am sure. So we will move into budget updates, starting with FY26.
Winding down everything. Lori just processed our last payroll today and we'll finalize it on Monday. And then she just has the balloon payments in the process for the teachers, so that's all done. We're just furiously calling vendors trying to getting the last invoices and making those out everything on time to make it happen.
So for FY27 budget update, I'll start with that at Phillipston special town meeting. They did vote in favor of the school budget. That does not close the process. They still have to vote that in at the ballot because their vote for the budget was tied to an override. And so we have to pass on that June 30th as well. Dr. Sierra Emery, do you want to add anything to that at this time? It's really at this point we have to act as though there will be a 1/12 because June 30th is the deadline by which we have to declare to the state what our budget is, but we won't actually know until after that ballot is processed. And so either way, we're taking the right measures, and then after June 30th, that would then determine exactly what happens next. Which would start with school committee. If they did not vote in the positive, school committee would need to meet and then vote again on a budget for it. At which point that would then activate the district-wide meeting.
All of the paperwork that was required for the commissioner to come up with a 112 number has been submitted
Okay,
to Desi.
okay.
It was done last week.
Oh, all
So
right,
I would imagine probably by the end of next week, we would have something,
yep,
some sort of a response in,
okay,
so we'll be ready to go July 1.
okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we have some regular work to do under budget, which is the budget transfers. So I gave a little bit of a preview of this. So essentially, the line item budget that school committee controls is for each of the levels of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, et cetera. Below that level, central office has control over the line items. And so what happens is that at the end of the year, if budget has needed to move in between any of the DOE code budget line items, then we review those with central office and make a determination of how to move those so that central office can balance the budget ultimately across these. So everyone has a link to the document to review it on their personal computers. So just as a note, this is under the end of year budget transfers agenda item, but I will hand it over to Anne Marie to go through those in greater detail.
So there is just a few lines that we need to adjust. One of them is obviously health insurance. You've heard me talk a lot about that this year, about how awful that has been. The reason for it is we've just had higher enrollment in our health insurance. We received a 63% increase for the retirees, and that starts in January. It's not July like the rest of the people. So we also had to pay 45% of our deficit from FY 25. And we had voted to use some of our E&D money for that, but there was still a balance of $100,000. So I am proposing, asking you to vote to move 200,000 from the 2,000 instruction lines to the fixed charges to cover that health insurance deficit. And then 200,000 from instruction, you're probably asking, why do we have that there? Because we've had several maternity leaves where the staff goes unpaid when they're not on. I am proposing, asking you.
My fault. I was trying to post these. It didn't work.
Just not.
It's not working.
Technology may not be your strong suit. It's all right. We'll review that later. Can we, so. We have to record your time of arrival. So, sorry, we'll go back to reviewing the budget.
So the reason we have extra in the instructional line is because we've had a few maternity leaves this year, which staff members have gone unpaid. They didn't have enough sick time to cover it. Plus, we've also had 2 open aging positions that we filled for long-term subs, and that is less money than a salary would be. So there's that. Then I am proposing taking 66,000 from our maintenance lines and moving it into our tuition lines, because the number of school choice and charter students that left the district this year was a lot higher than what the cherry sheets had estimated. And the reason we have money in the maintenance lines is because last year's bids for fuel, we did extremely well, so we saved a bit of money in those line items.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, so I'll put a motion on the table, and then we can go into any questions we might have. So I would entertain a motion to accept the budget transfers for FY 26 as presented. Motion by Sean, second by Hank. Okay, any questions or comments about those budget transfers or how those work? Do you actually have one?
No,
I see your head moving.
I think I would just like to see all the line items, but you know, I'm comfortable with the whys, so.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see it all out, but that's just who I am.
You can see it actually on the detail that you have access to.
Very good. Thank you so much.
I mean, you have to do a little math, but.
I got it.
It makes me help us.
Yeah. I'm buying what you're saying.
He'll fix your computer once.
I'm good, thank you.
No worries. Any other questions or comments? Do you need a minute to go through those or are you feeling fast? Okay. So, we have a motion on the table. So all in favor of moving these lineups as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. Moving into the business manager's report.
Not really that much to report. Because I
Beyond.
said what it is, on the grant side, we're just winding down, doing not over grants to get those spent by June 30th.
And the only thing I would add is we are anticipating that next year we will start in a budget freeze. That was a discussion that we started to have. And so I just want to share that, you know, as much as, you know, we're hopeful that things get passed, even if things get passed and that's the budget we are managing towards, we are already anticipating starting in a budget freeze.
And the staff has already been given their reduced line items for
Yeah.
their supplies, so they have their new
Noted. Okay.
limits that they have to adhere to, so.
Yeah, so I want to make it clear, like, we're already starting and thinking about what is it that we need to do fiscally in order to stick to the budget less than 1.3 million, which is already starting us in a budget freeze, so. All right, moving into the superintendent's formative assessment. So as a reminder for folks, I know that we went through this last time, but to go into some additional detail, so the superintendent and the district's goals are set on 2-year cycles. And so the superintendent gets reviews twice during the cycle. The first mid-term review is called the formative assessment, which is, you know, how is the superintendent making progress against the goals that have been set? And then at the end of the 2-year period, there's what's called a summative assessment, where we take a look at have the goals been met? How successfully have they been met? And so the superintendent gets rated on their performance. In order to provide justification for that, the superintendent goes through and offers evidence against each of the areas, so that it is clear, you know, what is the work that has been done, how close are we to, you know, achieving those goals, et cetera. And so what happens is that each school committee member has an opportunity to submit their feedback on the superintendent's performance to me. Then what I do is I take anything that is submitted and I essentially look and across the data, and anywhere where, you know, let's say if there's full agreement on a particular rating, then I just put in that rating. If there is any, you know, variety in what the rating is, then I take basically what the average is. And so that is how the ratings get put in, and then any comments that are submitted to me are included. And so we didn't have a ton of comments this year, but what comments there were, I did include. So what we'll do is that we'll run through this for Dr. C. He will have an opportunity to ask any questions, and then we do have to vote on it, because in order to consider this particular part of the cycle complete, we have to vote, and then it has to be submitted to the state. Anything you wanted to add, Dr. C?
No.
All right. So going through, we'll start on the first page of the assessment. So Essentially, the first step is to assess progress against goals. This is an overall rating that ultimately makes up the ratings that are detailed further below in the document. The first standard is professional practice goals, the second being student learning goals, and the third being district improvement goals. Against each of those, the overall rating across the board was significant progress. Moving into a little bit more of the detail, we then have the second part, which is to assess the performance on standards, of which there are 4. There is instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, professional culture. Again, these are also summaries of what comes below, so we'll go into some additional detail below. But in all of these, the rating came back as proficient. And then there's an overall rating that encompasses both of those sections, against which the rating was proficient, and the comment is as follows. The superintendent has made significant progress towards the district's goals by strengthening the systems that support teaching and learning, increasing the use of data to identify and address student needs, engaging stakeholders in meaningful district initiatives, and improving communication and transparency with the community. The work completed to date has created a stronger foundation for student success and positions the district well to continue advancing its strategic priorities. Now is where we move into the detail. So we'll start with the student learning goal. So the goal for the knowledge of folks here is that by June 2027, we will identify and address students' needs across academic and social emotional domains to ensure equitable educational opportunities for all students, to increase the percentage of students at or above grade level in ELA and math by 5% on the district benchmark assessments. These are then linked to focus indicators. There's a number of them in the rubric. In this case, it's 1A, 1B, 1C, 2C, and 3B. I won't go into great detail on the rubric just because it's very extensive and anyone who would like more information is readily available. So the evidence that was submitted against that was the 2025 to 2028 District Strategic Improvement Plan. There was also instructional calendars and stage 1 of curriculum maps developed at all K through 12 health and PE courses. They realigned data practices for Narragansett Regional High School's academic coaching program to support identification of students in need of services and monitoring student progress. Learning work walkthroughs were also presented as evidence, MCAS data, and beginning of year and middle of year STAR assessments. And against that, the rating was significant progress, which is typically appropriate for this point in the formative assessment. The next is also a student learning goal. So there's actually 2 student learning goals. This one relates to professional practice. By June 2027, we will narrow the achievement gap between students with disabilities and all students on district benchmark assessments and MCAS. The evidence submitted was Analytic View, which was developed and added a data dashboard to disaggregate data for SWD and students with disabilities and English learner populations. There is also data submitted around students with disabilities, the beginning of year and middle of year STAR assessment data. The district participation, ongoing DESE and special education strategy sessions focused on developing and implementing an action plan, which was also linked to support special education compliance for areas of needs improvement, and realign data practices for the high school's academic coaching program to support identification of students in need of services, along with ongoing English learner curriculum development. Again, the rating was significant progress. The next was the district improvement goal. This goal specifically is defined as by June 2027, we will develop and roll out a district-wide portrait of a warrior outlining the skills, attributes, and dispositions our community holds for all Gansett graduates. In this case, evidence submitted was the research portrait of a learner/graduate processes and products, surveyed stakeholders to gather input and help establish priorities, collaboratively analyzed data, collaboratively developed a portrait of a lawyer, and upcoming work towards developing promotional materials that would be rolled out with all students. Again, significant progress rating. And then finally, professional practice goal being district improvement goal number 2. Continue strengthening timely, responsive, collaborative, and inclusive internal and external communication. So evidence submitted include a snow video, community survey to gather input to develop portrait of a warrior, the reports at school committee meetings. In collaboration with Analytic View, they developed and launched a public data dashboard on budget, enrollment, and demographic data. They updated our budget section of our website to keep the public informed. There's also been ongoing communication regarding the MSBA roof project with multiple examples, and ongoing communication regarding the FY27 budget, again, with multiple examples. And again, the rating of significant progress was given. It then goes into the full rubric to rate each item of the rubric that is then connected to the district goals. And so you heard me mention those earlier, IA, IB, etc. I won't read these in full because it takes quite some time, but I will go through each one. So the first set of rubric are related to instructional leadership, and the evidence presented as well as the goals are linked to IA curriculum, IB instruction, IC assessment, and IE data informed decision making. And across each of those, the rating of proficient was given. The comment submitted was, the superintendent has made meaningful progress across standards IA, IB, IC, and IE through continued work to strengthen curriculum development, instructional practices, and the district's use of data to support student learning. Efforts to improve instructional monitoring, expand access to student performance data, and enhance systems for identifying and addressing student needs have established a strong foundation for informed decision-making across the district. While much of this work remains ongoing, the evidence reflects steady progress towards the district's goals and priorities. The next section is section 2. Section 2 reflects management and operations, with the district goals tied specifically to 2C, which is scheduling and management information systems, against which a proficient rating was given. And the comment reads, the superintendent has strengthened the district's data and reporting systems in ways that support student achievement, informed decision-making, and public transparency. Through the development of student performance dashboards, public-facing budget and enrollment dashboards, and improved systems for monitoring student interventions, the district is better positioned to track progress, identify needs, and provide stakeholders with meaningful access to information. The next goes on to standard 3, which is family and community engagement, against which the district goals relate to 3B, which is sharing responsibility, and 3C, communication. Against 3B, sharing responsibility, a rating of proficient was given. Against 3C, communication, and a rating of exemplary was given. The comment here is that the superintendent has demonstrated a commitment to open and consistent communication through public dashboards, informational videos, website enhancements, budget presentations, surveys, and regular outreach to staff, families, unions, municipal leaders, and the community. These efforts have improved transparency and access to information while helping stakeholders better understand district priorities, major initiatives, and the rationale behind key decisions. One comment I will make here is that pretty consistently, the committee has given feedback over the past few years about like, hey, we need better communication from the schools, or we need school brains to be updated consistently, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And while I will say, I think that will always be a work in progress because it is extremely difficult to get a school community of this many members to all communicate in the same way consistently. Every single year, I see additional improvements made to what's coming out because, like as an example, School Brains, I felt was updated much more consistently this year versus previous. So you can definitely see some of those things happening. So all of that isn't reflected in the comments here. I did want to recognize that that has been a consistent point of feedback in the past. And while it wasn't the focus this time around, we do continue to see that progress, even when it's not on the district goals specifically. So. Moving along to standard 4, professional culture. The ratings here were given against 4A, commitment to high standards, 4B, cultural proficiency, 4E, shared vision. Against all of these, a rating of proficiency was given. Here, the comment was, the superintendent has made meaningful progress in advancing the district's strategic priorities through a continued focus on student achievement, equity, and long-term planning. The work to develop the portrait of a warrior stands out as a particularly strong example of stakeholder engagement, bringing together voices from across the district and community to define what we want all Lancet graduates to know, value, and be able to do. Together, these efforts have strengthened alignment around district goals and created a clearer path forward for the work ahead. There ends me reading to all of you. So I will put first I'm going to give Dr. C an opportunity to comment, and then we'll get a motion on the floor and we'll ask any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I always do appreciate the effort that goes into these. I know that they're lengthy and they're, at times, confusing because there's a lot of information, a lot of data that goes into these. And so it almost sometimes looks like a data dump at times. We've talked, the committee knows how I feel about the evaluative process in general. And so, but the good news, or what I've always liked about this process, is that every good thing that has been derived or has been worked on here in the district is the work of others. I certainly don't stand here taking the credit for it. It's, when the committee decides what the focus areas to be forward, we have a great team of people who do really great work. So, you talk about the school ratings, that has been, it's been a happening project and trying to communicate as well as we can. That's the efforts of everyone, technology department, buildings principals, students, and rating, and just really, for whatever success that we've had, and we've had quite a few here, it really is on the backs of the folks who do the real work. And so I'm always happy to take, take the mantle for that for them in this setting, but it's really critical to do all of the hard work. In terms of moving forward, our priorities might have to change a little bit next year, just given, all the changes that are, regardless of how the budget falls. We're going to have to change a few things. We're going to have to prioritize a little bit differently. We're going to have to work a little bit differently. And certainly our priorities will have to be, realigned a bit in terms of where we have, without having Molly or the position of the assistant superintendent or someone who's actually overseeing curriculum at the district level. I don't know that I can tell you in the last 15 or 20 years, if not longer, we've never not had a position here that has been dedicated in some way to that. So that'll be a new venture. Again, the district's been around since 1954, 1955. So I don't say things like, oh, it's never happened. But I can tell you in the last 20 years, I can say that.
We've always had it.
Sure. The other big change, as folks know, is that we'll have one building principal for middle high, one contiguous building. It fits, and it makes sense. We've been tinkering with that for a bit, as everyone knows, at least the folks who've been on the committee the last couple of years. And so now it's time to see how the middle high school kind of format will look. We have great people who are going to do it. So I quite frankly, I feel good about it because people that we have here, but it'll be different. It'll just be different. So all that being said, as we figure out where we stand come September, call it September, there'll be a lot of changes. But again, we're well poised to handle whatever comes our way. It'll just be a lot different after coming. we'll have to kind of, figure out different ways to meet the goals, but I appreciate the time, the effort into the evaluation.
So I would entertain a motion to accept the formative assessment as presented. Motion by Sean. Second by Heather. Any questions or comments for you today? And certainly you can feel free to give ad hoc commentary like I did in that space to about. Yeah.
I have a quick one. Dr. Castman, I also just want to point out that particularly over the past couple of years, I appreciate all the public appearances that you've made at the events. That's something that I mentioned a while ago, and I've been to all of them, and I've seen you at all of them. So, and I know that you're busy, so I do appreciate that.
Thank you. I love it. You know, if there are kids there, then in general, I'm you know, it's a good place for me to be. It's just where all just what the adults are sometimes. If there are kids present, then or ice cream.
Kids are ice cream.
Usually a pretty good.
I hear you're up for a good water bill.
And a good water bill on occasion. Exactly.
Anything else? When you talk about, that need that's gonna be to realign priorities, the one thing I have to say is I appreciate having gotten to know you over the years that I know some of your priorities are, and we talk about student learning and I've heard you say multiple times over the years that there are aspects here that I know very, very dearly this year that of student safety, and you've always made a commitment that that is our non-negotiable. So, thank you for that in the past, and thank you for that going forward, because I know that's gonna be in your mind.
Sure.
And that's something that sometimes, some people, wanna say, well, what's this money for, what's that money for? And I'm talking about like community in general, more, here, people sitting here, we know that there are parts in this budget that we only see the overview of because student privacy and student safety is ingrained in the details of that number, and that's not something anyone here, you are safeguarding that for those kids, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. On that note, I can't help but, honestly point out, or at least mention, it'd be awful if I didn't, the help of the Templeton PD and the fire department and the ambulance service, who probably more times than people, but we've had situations where we need our SROs, Ray, G. Bennett, dedicated to the SRO program as well. He wasn't the first, but certainly he was either second or third or whatever the case. Mr. Dale, very first SRO, if I remember my history correct. So that it's a team effort when it comes to and parents and people, too. But yeah, we want to make sure I shout out to the SROs who really do a great job for us. So thank you.
Right, so we have a motion on the table to accept the formative assessment as presented, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. Okay, so we have, I'd like to get through these appointments. What I'd like to propose to the committee, if anyone is opposed, is we had someone volunteer for CPAC and someone volunteer for PTO. So I'm proposing that we do those first and then come back to the other two for which I have not had volunteers yet. Does that work for everybody around the table? Okay. So, thank you, Elizabeth Bond, for volunteering for CPAC. So as such, I would entertain a motion to appoint Elizabeth Bond as the liaison to the NRSD CPAC. So, motion by Sean, second by Hank. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that is unanimous. And thank you, let me know if you need any help making those connections. But Susan is also a great resource. And next, thank you, Sean. I would entertain a motion to appoint Sean Case as the liaison to the NRSD PTO.
So moved.
Motion by Hank. Second by Heather. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes. So that leaves two positions. Technically, Heather has committed to do the MASC delegate, this year, should we need her to. But like I said, this is a great one for someone else to sign up for. It's a great learning opportunity. And Heather has done it, the past few years outside of this immediate past year. And then the other one is the legislative representative appointment. So does anyone have any questions about those? We can continue to leave them on, but at some point we do need to fill them, and so we'll have to have some discussion. But you know, folks can contact me outside. But are there any questions about those? Okay. So what I would ask is that yes, let's encourage some additional, you know, Phillipston members to join in. Because work shared is less work for each one of us. And also, yes, we want this committee to be fully represented. So is there any curriculum and instruction update this evening? It does appear that we have some surplus items this evening. No? Or those, did I accidentally not do that last week? My apologies. We do have the option to copy, and that was my fault. So speaking of school committee vacancies for Phillipston, so we do post those. We post those on the district Facebook. We post those with the Phillipston newsletter.
Just reposted them.
You just reposted them while we were sitting here. So I also annoyingly talked to parents at baseball games, at every kid function I can come up with. I have absolutely done a fair amount of education to Phillipston parents about what's happening in Phillipston and things they should be aware of. I think what I have heard back from those Phillipston residents is they find it challenging to figure out how to participate in their town government because a lot of their meetings are posted they're posted in the offices. And while they do also have a regular schedule that is posted online. And so I've been doing a lot of helping folks to better understand where to find information or how to find information. So I think there's just a general lack of understanding of how to figure out how to be a participant. But yes, you know, I don't think there's a single committee member here who isn't like, oh, you're from Phillipston? Why? How nice to meet you. Do I know something for you? But getting folks to participate in public service right now is challenging. I don't think that's a problem that is unique to school committee. I think that's something that both of our towns are facing as well. And, you know, I will additionally comment that, you know, participating means sitting in a hot seat sometimes, and folks are very uncomfortable with that. That is the number one feedback I get is, oh no, I couldn't sit up there and, you know, have people, you know, angry with me or shouting at me or, you know, and I think we do a pretty good job of maintaining, you know, very calm and respectful dialogue. But I understand why they have that perception based on what they see on the news for other committees in other areas. I mean, my goodness, I think I jokingly, but also not jokingly, shared a story about Nantucket school committee members receiving brownies that were laced with laxatives. So folks see these things in the news, and that does not give the warm fuzzies about participating. So yes, absolutely, we're putting this out there. And also, in order for folks to feel comfortable participating, we have to create environments in which they feel confident sitting at the table and, you know, being ready to hear both the good, but mostly a lot of criticism. So, and that's a hard end of the table to sit at. So, but yes, we are very actively trying to recruit for that. And unfortunately, finding folks in Phillipston has always been a challenge for this committee. So thank you to those who stepped up.
It might be helpful, just thinking, because Mr. Valentine was mentioning, you know, like, well, how does this process kind of happen? That if someone, you know, from the community does want to volunteer for the position,
Thank you.
what they would need to do, and it's typically in the posting. I haven't read the posting, but I mean, this is how I came to be. I got one of those messages. They have never seen her at a baseball game, but she definitely found me and tracked me down and made polite conversation, and then the real motive came out. And was asked to show up, and as a matter of fact, I remember Hank saying, she hasn't left yet, hurry up and just vote. But what you would do is you write a letter and, usually the letters get sent into Dr. Cassidon's office and then shared with the chair, saying your interest. You have to be a Phillips resident in this case, because that's the open seats. And, we'd invite you to a school committee meeting where, we were very nice. We would never be very mean, but we would be, a quick interview, because outside of an election cycle, it's not a special election, it's public. So they would come here, show their interest, and then we'd interview, decide to nominate, we'd vote them in. They would only be serving until the next election. The remaining portion of that seat, if it's 2 years left or 1 year left, or if it's the year that it would be up due for 3 years, would be on the next ballot for whatever the remaining term is. That person would only serve until the election day. They could obviously get signatures and get on the ballot for a new, term and be voted in. As I did a couple times, I lost count. But that's how the process works. So, yeah, thanks for asking, because they gave us another chance to put that information out there.
Thank you for going through that.
Thank you.
Superintendent report.
Ooh, well, it's only been 2 weeks since our last report, and so the last 2 weeks of school, of course, are just some of the busiest that we have. We've had Washington, we had
College school.
ecology on Fair Beach, and we've had field trips at the elementary. We've had field days, both indoors and out, depending on the weather. We're, obviously we're wrapping up at this point in time. Failing to remember anything of not significance, but certainly it's just been so busy. It's hard to.
Kindergarten situation.
Well, of course, we had graduation and the kindergarten graduation. Oh my gosh, right? So that was a couple days ago. That was fantastic. We had the undergrad award ceremony, which is fantastic.
Bridge ceremony as well.
In the bridge, we had the fourth grade come up to visit. Their new gigs here next year. We had the seventh grade do their bridge ceremony as well. So this all happened literally the last day of the week, last calendar week. So it's been really busy. At one time we had 500 parents down at kindergarten graduation, and up here we had 200 parents up here for undergrad, and it was just going back and forth to try to get a little bit of everything. So today being the last full day of the school year, we come back, of course, on Monday for the half day. It was really just wrapping up all the kind of loose ends. Go.
So, great. There were no items not reasonably anticipated. Any school committee comments this evening? Okay. So school subcommittee reports. So most of those subcommittee reports have not met, so I will not go through them one by one. What I will say is that under Labor Management Committee, we did have our final negotiation meeting with UFCW. So we did anticipate being able to have executive session this evening. However, because we have a municipal representative for that, and he could not be here this evening because the offices are closed today. And so I apologize that I had to put it on the agenda, to make sure that it got in there in time for open meeting, but I did not, I wanted to make sure it was left on there and it's clear as to why we are not having executive session this evening. So we will suspend reviewing that contract until a future meeting date, when we can have our municipal representative here at the table with us to review the contract and then to have a vote. And his vote, in this case, James, who will be coming here with us, is equal to one vote from a school committee member. So it's like we added a school committee member for the evening, just to remind everyone of how that works. So since we do not need that, I would remind everyone that our next scheduled meeting is August 13th, 2026. I do want to say that in that list, we also have August 20th. We are anticipating that since we are just moving a meeting earlier in August, that we won't need both meetings in August. So unless anyone is opposed, I will cancel August 20th. No one's jonesing to have a second meeting that month.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so August 13th is when we confirmed the meeting based on the survey that Susan did. So if you could all make sure that August 13th is on your calendars, I will be removing August 20th from the list. Now, of course, depending what happens with the June 30th vote with Phillipston, just be on notice that we could have to plan a special meeting of the school committee. At which point we would probably be flexible on what day of the week it is, just in consideration of the fact that it is July and there are a lot of vacations. So we would be going for a first available date that works for the full committee. Because if we had to do a vote that evening, it would require 2/3 vote of the meeting, so. As such, that concludes our business for this evening, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion, I will give that to Hank,
Second.
second by Sean. And there are no questions or comments on that one, so all in favor? Aye.